Hi, welcome to our second part of our second reading of the book club, which we still don't have a name for. Um, we are going to be talking about chapters 35 through 41, and then we're going to be having a discussion about the chapters that we just went through, including the ones we went through on the first half of this video, which you should go check out if you haven't already, because you'll be confused if you didn't. Um, Thank you for watching this, and yeah, enjoy it. Or something. I don't know. Get out of here.
So chapter 35 as well. We talked a bit about this before, but this is the chapter where the caravan arrives in Imre, probably.
Mimure?
And this is, yes,
How do you
this is
spell it?
Kvot's
IMRE?
destination. IMRE. Imre. I pronounce Lonre, like Lonre, so I probably would say Imre.
Actually, that's pronounced Lanner.
Lanner? Actually.
Actually,
Get it right. um, so Imre is Kvot's destination because it is the city closest to the university. Rita, who is the wife of the caravan leader, gives Kvothe a jot.
She's mentioned multiple chapters too. That's four.
That's true. And she's actually, she's still alive. She's just out of the story right now.
Yeah.
Rita gives Kvothe
So
a jot.
two of them are alive of those four.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah. Rita gives Kvothe a jot, and Derek, who is the other young man in the caravan, explains Keldish traditions to him. The caravan will continue on to Annalyn, and Denna asks Kvothe if he would come with them. Kvothe holds that he must go to the university and says his goodbyes to Denna, saying he will meet her where the roads meet. Yeah, this was a okay chapter. It gave a little bit more into like Keldish or Shaldish traditions. Because Derek talked about
They're so
Rita.
childish.
There's a God damn it. That's a bad joke. Yeah, so yeah, no, it was a good chapter. I do hope that we meet Denna again. And I also hope that she's not the woman who presumably maybe dies. That Kvothe loved.
They well
Well, we don't know what happened to her, but
so I was gonna say he killed her, but also I don't actually think he didn't say that. Those might have been two separate people. He said he killed an angel, but he also clearly loved someone who is now dead or gone. Those aren't necessarily the same person.
yeah, he wait, yeah, because Chronicler mentioned they say, you killed an angel or something, or like he remarks to himself, "This is the man who killed an angel," but it could be two different people.
Right.
Be interesting though that if he, it would be interesting though if like I wonder if it's going to become something like a Haliax-esque situation, like if there's going to be some parallels.
I think it kills Heliax. Heliax technically an angel, right?
That'd be interesting. Yeah. Yeah, he's basically Lucifer.
No,
Fallen
not
fallen
really.
or am I right? The fallen
I
angel.
would perceive what's his name, Encantus as like Lucifer type. Although,
Oh, true.
if you think about it, I never actually a lot of times when you introduce or when cultures introduce a big man, if you will, an all father, there's an antithesis to that. In Hebrew based religions like Christianity and Islam and Judaism, there is no direct antithesis to God. There's no like dichotomy between a creator and a destroyer.
Right.
There's a creator who created all, and then one of the things he created decided to rise up against him. and that, I mean, we kind of perceive it as like heaven and hell are opposites,
Mm-hmm.
like that sort of thing. But really, they're not. If you think about it in that regard,
Mm-hmm.
like it's
Hmm.
I'd never actually considered that before. There's no
Hmm.
there's no inverse God. There's no negative God.
Yeah. Hmm. That is interesting.
Hmm. Okay.
Hmm.
Look what we learned today, all about
We're
religion.
just
I now
learning
know
things left
more
and
than
right.
every single religious person in the Bible Belt. Not that that was hard.
More than um so the next chapter as well is more of a focus on his journey to the university, and that's chapter 36, which is called Less Talents. I haven't actually written too much about this one, but I can kind of give a very brief synopsis.
Wait, less?
Less talents, yeah. Oh god, did I write it wrong?
Well, no, I don't know, but
I don't
that
think so. I think it's less talents.
is it less or fewer? I mean, not
Uh
not what he wrote, but correct. What's correct?
oh, well, it's because it's talking. There's a line where his admission is
Oh, right.
three less talents. That's what. So it's a part of a sentence.
I hate the terminology of that. By the way, the way they describe that, it's like, what the hell does that mean?
It means he
Like,
gets
why?
in for free.
No, I understand that. Why would they say negative as less?
I don't know. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm. The university's weird. Very specific.
Like, it was so much so that this smartass child who already knows all the sciences was like, "Oh well, I don't know what that means."
Yeah, I mean that was kind of funny too. He was like, "Oh, right." Yeah. So to give a summary, Kavath enters the university and makes a case with the chancellor and several masters to admit him as a student, using a method of cheating from watching interviews with other students, as well as his own knowledge. He's admitted for, quote, less 3 talents. I've also made a note here that says Laura knew Kavoth's father as Arleden the Bard, which makes Kavoth very angry. I think I'd also made...
Arleden or Arleden?
I pronounced it Arleden, but Arleden would work.
I guess it's poll time, huh?
Arleden.
You're wrong, so I mean, we're gonna have to do a poll.
I'm wrong. Pshaw.
How do you spell it?
Arliden. Arleden. I mean, I guess if it's Arleden, it would be kind of funny because it'd be like, he's a charlatan. But yeah, I think this is the first time that we hear his name, or maybe one of the first times. I don't remember reading his name before.
Oh, sorry. Too late, coal fires. All right, well, option 3 can be
The takers for Arliden. Oh no.
Any votes for
third
3 will
option.
count as Arliden.
Yeah, third secret option. A secret third thing.
See, that's why you gotta have a
Arliden.
secret third thing, just in case.
Exactly. Man, my computer is so freaking slow. I just want to vote. There we go. So yeah, so generally with this chapter, I thought it was okay, but a little long, and there was a lot of names that I know I'm gonna meet them properly with the chapters to come when we have more interactions with them. But I was just like, okay, next question. Okay, next question. You know,
I feel like we're never gonna really care about more than half of those people.
I mean, we're halfway through the book. Probably not.
Well, no, I mean, like, literally, I feel like there were, how many were there? Like 8?
Yeah, there was like 6 to 8. Yeah.
I feel like literally half of them are never going to be mentioned again. Of those, like, they're just not important, or they will be mentioned passing and not matter. That's my guess. Like, it's not going to be like Harry Potter, where they have like you go through and you do things with every single professor.
Yeah. Rothfuss likes to do that too. Like, he will name names and then maybe not bringing them back
I
really.
don't know if you've noticed this. I don't know. I don't think he did it so much in the first reading, but in the second reading,
He did it a bit.
he does a lot of so and so did this, and then they did this. This person named by name did this. So like without actually saying this person's named this, he says a couple times that they did something. Then the third time, or however many of times, he just suddenly starts referring to them by their name without ever introducing them.
Mm.
So he just starts calling them by name. And I know it's not as bad because he actually starts with the naming of, or sorry, the using of pronouns before moving to names. But
Mm-hmm.
I've known people who, when they tell stories or things that happen in their life, they just
Mm-hmm.
start by naming people. Like they just don't bother to think, maybe these people don't know who I'm talking about. Nope, they just throw names out there as if you're supposed to know who they are. It's
Mm.
reminded me a bit of that. But
Mm. Yeah.
I've been noticing that is that instead of formally naming people, he'll just start referring to them by their name.
Yeah. That's interesting.
He did that a couple
Hmm.
times in this reading.
Yeah, he did actually. Like even with the masters, like he didn't.
It caught me by surprise a few times because I was like, wait, who? What? Oh,
Mm-hmm,
oh,
mm-hmm.
oh, that
Have
person.
they been? Yeah. Um.
I
Yeah,
think
because he likes to kind of describe them first, but not always in full detail. Like he'll introduce them, say maybe give them a couple details about how they look, and then say Scarpy said this, and I was like, oh, okay, that's Scarpy.
so. When he was meeting, when he, the asshole,
Pike,
um,
or
in the library,
oh, Ambrose.
Ambrose.
Yeah.
Where was that?
Uh, chapter
Okay, okay, here it is.
37.
Yeah, he describes this person, and he says he tapped his pen for another few minutes. Blah blah blah. He flipped through the ledger. He glanced up briefly, scowled again. Blah blah blah. Ambrose put down his pen again. Listen, he
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
So he never actually said his name was Ambrose. All he did, or until suddenly he just did. Although he did it
Yeah.
in such a way where he said Ambrose put down his pen again, which is something he
Yeah.
did previously. So there's no way you could
Yes.
mistake it. However, it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah, it's like a narrative. I mean, it is a narrative choice for him to do that. It's interesting to do it. It didn't throw me off, but that's also because the way that he did it, I was like, oh, he tapped his pen again. This must be Ambrose. Okay, but
I wonder with how
yeah,
much intention he had him tap his pen just so that he could then say he tapped his pen again so that he could
yeah,
introduce him that way.
yeah, that is interesting. Hmm. How do we learn that? Yeah.
As someone who claims to be a really good storyteller, I feel like Kvoth, that was a big mistake for Kvoth to have made, to forget to introduce someone before referring to them by name.
Yeah, especially if like Chronicler's writing all this down too.
Yeah,
He doesn't want to confuse anyone.
right. Why would Chronicler
But
do that?
yeah,
Why would
yeah.
Chronicle do this?
Which not all men. Chronicle would never do this. But yeah, I mean that even kind of goes against what we were talking about before, where in our first reading we got the sense of the chroniclers writing this down to be um like he's writing it in with Kavoth's cadence, but it's his own words. But in this one, it doesn't make sense if Chronicler writes that in that way. But it makes sense if Kavoth does, if he just isn't really a storyteller often. I mean, certainly he has never told this story in as much detail, it sounds like.
True.
So there is that too.
Yeah.
But I agree, it is confusing. It's just an interesting narrative choice.
But that's yeah, that was interesting to me. It just caught me by surprise.
Mm-hmm.
It made me thonk.
Yeah. And like that's different from like when we're introduced to other characters that are like really pivotal too, like Haliax. Haliax is named, like he's described, but then another character says, "Hey, Haliax."
Yeah. The the
You know,
the key difference there is someone says it aloud whilst speaking to
yes,
them, as opposed to
someone speaking to Kavoth. He's not going to say his own
the
name.
narrator saying it without
Yeah.
introducing them is the big difference.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. Um. Yeah. So, kind of going into the Ambrose chapter, I actually didn't write too much for this chapter, but chapter 37 is called Bright Eyed, and it goes into how Kavoth gets his bunk and a meal plan and meets his fellow students, including Manet,
Manette.
Simon, Minette, Simon, and others. He tries to get into the library, but Ambrose doesn't allow him into the archives. He's a big old bastard, and he says, "Nah, you're not on the list. Get out of here."
What's the name of the what's the word? Um, the posh guy.
Oh, God, I loved him. Savoy?
Savoy or whatever.
Savoy?
Is that his
Yeah,
name?
I think so. I love him so much. I hope he gets excellent character development, but I don't know if he will.
I love him because he's annoying, like awfully annoying, but
Yeah.
like not in a way that I hate him. And I don't know how.
Yeah.
Like everything about him should make me hate him, but I don't.
Yeah. He's just like, oh God, I
Hashtag
have to.
silly
I have to
Savoy.
silly Savoy. He's so silly. We love him. I think Kavoth is a storyteller, being from a troop and all. True. He did say the best lies about me are the ones I told. That's an interesting. I'm gonna like. I feel like that's a larger discussion piece for sure, just about like storytelling in general with him. So chapters 38 and 39, they're both a little bit of a short summary. I feel like they kind of go together a bit. But chapter 38 is called Sympathy in the Mains. Kavoth attends his first class under Master Hem and begins to look into the history of the Chandrian without much luck. And then chapter 39 is Enough Rope, where Kavoth performs a demonstration of the 3 simple laws of sympathy in front of Master Hem's class. He is successful in winning over the audience and nearly, I don't know why I wrote nearly, he embarrasses Master Hem by burning his foot a bit.
Which of the chapters was the one where he embarrassed that poor girl?
The Master Hem? That was 38. That made me uncomfortable.
That made me cringe. Like,
yeah.
I was like, come
the
on,
gates
Patrick.
Of hell. I was like, dude. Yeah, no, that made me like actually uncomfortable. I was like, that poor girl. Like, okay. For context, the chapter or the moment that we're talking about is I think in chapter 38 when Master Hem there's a couple young boys who come in and he says like, oh, you're late, I'm gonna have you write a report on this thing because you were late and for this reason, and they're like, oh God. And then a girl comes in late and he's like, oh, and he escorts her like to her seat. He's like, oh, don't worry at all that you were late, by all means, please have a seat. And then she does. And he's like, by the way, could you please close your legs? And she's like, okay. And closes. And then he goes, well, now that the gates of hell have closed, we can move on with our lecture. And I went, oh,
so
what the fuck?
The thing I didn't get is, was he just being a complete asshole, or was she like not wearing underwear or something? Like,
I don't know. It's not clear, I don't think.
I mean,
I want to say
either way, being an asshole, but like,
yeah,
it's just, it's so weird, man.
Yeah, there are better ways to make a sated character. Exactly. Yeah, like that was a weird thing to put in. I don't know. Yeah, ew, I hate this man immediately. Yeah.
It just, yeah, as Coalfire so eloquently put it. Come on, man.
yeah, and it was that was like.
But why does it matter if he's a why do you need to make him a misogynist? It's easy to make him an asshole.
Yeah.
Right? Unless
take him to be a huge misogynist.
Unless later on that comes up as an issue. But like otherwise it just seems like hey, there's a woman here. Let's use her as a plot device. How do I want to use women? Oh, I know, sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know if this was something I inferred or something that was said that she was one of, if not the only girl in the class as well. It was said, yeah, to make Kavoth care about women. I don't know. Yeah, because I mean,
He already
yeah, because
cares
if you
about
think about,
women. At
yeah,
least one of
well,
them.
because it, well, because if you compare it, like Kavoth is very shy and like and describes women as beautiful and like he's very polite and nice about that. Whereas you have old man Master Hem, who's a fucking misogynist. Um, and yeah, it's just
But
uncomfortable.
but
But
Kvoth doesn't do anything about it.
no, he doesn't.
So I
No one
don't
does, in
that doesn't
fact.
say anything about Kvoth at all. If
No,
anything,
I
it says something negative about Kvoth, that he had to include it in
didn't
his
speak up.
story
Hmm.
and didn't even bother to do anything to speak up about it.
Yeah, yeah. It was a like, and there's bits too where it's like I don't quite really know what necessarily Rothfuss's his stance is for certain things. So like for example, there's that where I'm like, oh, I hate this character. He's misogynist. That's gross. And then in another chapter, um, Rothfuss goes into a when he's talking about the Scarpy story, where Scarpy is talking about how Celatos goes to Aleph and he says, hey, these are the Ruach, they'll be defenders. And he describes each of the Ruach people. And one of them is he describes as the woman who was the first to experience unasked for touch of a man.
Oh
And I
yeah,
went, oh, that's rape. Cool.
that was weird. Why is that
Yeah.
part of your creation myth?
Yeah,
Like,
and like, because they were talking about other characters who like something tragic had befallen them, and I think that was so. Anyway, so like including that, I was like, okay, so that's painting that image of like feel bad for her. Good, obviously that's terrible. Awesome. Um, and then we have moments like this where I don't know like what he's trying to show other than him being a misogynist, but you could do it in other ways. So I don't know. It's little pieces that are brought occasionally up like that with women, and I'm like, I don't know if I like this or if you're like, are you trying to make a bigger point against like don't uh you know insult or abuse women or anything and all that, but
but look at all
also
these characters doing it that I don't say it's a bad thing.
yeah, I just don't really quite know, and I'm sure I think he would assume like he would like his his message would be like obviously don't do this to
Yeah,
women are cool, but
I don't think this is like a manifesto about
no.
how you should.
No, yeah, don't do this stuff. The way Kavoth
Don't
felt
try this
guilty
at
about
home.
not helping the boy. Ah, yes, interesting, Glow. The way Kavoth felt guilty about not helping the boy getting beat up, but doesn't have any feelings towards the icky comment toward the girl. Yeah. And if they're gonna pull this shit of just like, well, that was the time, I'm gonna fucking punch somebody. So, because that's what every medieval fantasy, like, bad written piece says. They're like, well, we're gonna put this in because that was the time. Fuck off.
Yeah.
That's what people wrote about. That's not doesn't mean it happened. Like that's not.
Is that what people wrote about though?
Well, no, like her curves.
Yeah.
I'm with you there, Amy. Yeah. So yeah, I don't quite know how I feel about it, which is interesting because it's halfway through the book. But they are icky comments that are coming out. So like I'm like, so yeah.
We'll see how he misogynizes the angel.
I mean, you could also say, well, like he also knew that he wanted to fuck around with Master Ham and he burned his foot because he's like, "Fuck you." That doesn't excuse his comment, but like, at least he did something, I guess. But
I mean,
that was after.
Literally said it was an accident. And he didn't think it would actually hurt him.
Yeah, true. It wasn't intentional. So yeah, that brings us to chapter 40, which is called "On the Horns." Kvothe is summoned by the Masters to receive punishment for his use of sympathy and on Master Hem. And Master Hem the charges included thrashings and expulsion from the school. Thrashings. Kvothe convinces him to reconsider, and he becomes a member of the Arcanum. Because he's like, fuck you, it was a mistake. Which is actually kind of funny, because like everybody he's like, oh, you're getting called by the Masters and the Chancellor, and he goes, okay, and everyone's like, he's gonna die, and he comes back and he's like, I'm part of the Arcanum now, and they're like, what the fuck did you do? What? They're so impressed.
That feeds into one of my discussion points about is Kvothe Mary Sue? Like, can he fail? Is he perfect? Like, is he too perfect?
I mean, he does stumble.
I mean, not for very long.
Not often, yeah. Yeah. That's fair. I don't know. Kvothe is definitely a wish fulfillment character. I was going back through the first reading, and he does say he was expelled from the university when he was younger than they usually accepted people in. So I will see how that turns out. Oh, I didn't. I completely forgot about that. Well, shit.
Maybe he's gonna be expelled for pretending not to have blood.
The Bloodless. That's the next chapter name too. The 42.
Yeah, no, that's what's gonna happen. He's gonna pretend not to have blood when he gets whipped.
No. Yep.
I haven't read it. I just know that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they focus quite a bit on the blood in that whipping chapter, so I don't know.
That's 100% what it is. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, man.
He took cocaine and now he doesn't have blood.
He took crack cocaine. Interesting insofar as we know from the beginning that his ending is complex. Yeah. There's another piece I wanted to talk about too, more about the first reading, but it's something that Aries and I talked about. But getting to the final chapter of this reading, which is chapter 41, Friend's Blood. Kvothe spends some time with Willem.
You read a very different chapter than I did.
It's because I wrote W and it looked like in. I wrote it quickly.
So you're reading like the alternate fanfic, right? Where
it's the spicy fanfic. So he spends time with Willem in wait of his lashing punishment. That would have been far worse if I said that in Willem and continued that sentence. Anyway, he then attends to a crowd of people who watch the punishment. Kvothe is painfully whipped in the back, but he does not cry out. He leaves the space as calmly as possible once the punishment is finished.
Because he is high on crack cocaine.
Absolutely. High as balls. But yeah, those were the 21 chapters that we read, or 20 chapters. Anyway, 21 to 41. And that was the summary. So now we'll maybe go into a bit of discussion. I was just thinking about how many new characters we met, because we met a lot of new characters in this reading.
Are we talking about new characters who we care about, or new characters who we met in passing?
If it's characters who intrigued us the most, or I think that was the line, then I think we'd care about them.
Because I want to talk about the two girls running the inn.
Oh yeah, they were sweet.
I felt so bad.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, sorry, here's your food."
They were like crying as he ran away. Because they couldn't help him.
I quite liked the innkeeper. I mean, he was very, like, he wasn't in there long, but he was nice.
So was everybody else in the entire book.
Fair. Intrigued me the most, though. I mean,
you may not be intrigued by minor characters. It is against the rules.
I think I mean,
hey, that's why I name all my minor characters, because they might be interesting if I name them right.
I mean, we learned more about Lon Ray, and I like his story and becoming Haliax. That was cool. I like that. Um, Trappist was an interesting character, I feel like. And he was a focus. So we got a lot of him, but at the same time not a lot of him. Mm,
He was spread out a lot.
yeah. Um and Scarpy was interesting. He intrigued me a bunch because I wanted to learn about his story, like his whole thing.
Oh yeah, Master Wacky Ass.
Master Wacky Ass.
Yeah, the namer guy that
Oh, that I
nobody
can't
seems
remember.
to respect.
Oh, the poor guy.
I get the sense
Yeah.
that he's nobody believes that whatever he's doing is actually a thing.
No, it's not Lauren. Lauren's the one who's the stoic person.
Eladon, yeah.
Eladon. Yeah, him. Yeah. I was trying to look up his name in the book or before we went to stream and I couldn't find it. So thank you.
Master Eladon, the Master Namer.
Yeah, you can talk about that.
It took me way too long to realize that that wasn't the word Namer. It was the word Namer.
Namer.
I was like, who's this Namer guy? Is he related to
Namer.
Namor?
Namor? Oh my god, Black Panther 2. Oh my god, Marvel.
Did you watch that?
Stop. I did.
Did
I
you like
really
it?
liked that one.
Yeah,
I did.
It was good.
It was very good.
I don't
And not
think it
not
was,
just because Namor was extremely hot.
I don't think it was as good as the first Black Panther, but I think it was very good on its own. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to see the new new Guardians of the Galaxy. I've heard it's amazing.
Yeah, I heard it was a lot of fun.
Can't watch
I
it
have
though
one
because
friend who went.
my roommate has COVID. And
No.
I can't go to a theater because that would be irresponsible. Your entire cam just went black from the cat.
There is no Ekami. There is only Bo. He had to walk across my laptop so then he could go eat his dinner, which was there was a path behind the laptop, but he's a cat, so hi Bo.
He needs the attention.
I'll say nothing further about Eladon. Eladon's gonna be a big if he's the master namer. They've already talked about the power of naming things and true names, or sorry, long names of people. There's gonna be a big thing with him, I bet. And I wanted to talk about long names too, or just naming in general.
Yeah, what
I don't know
kind
how
of
much we
parent
could,
gives
but-
their child such a long name? I mean,
Like the naming uh, part of the magic system, like we know that from the name of the wind is mentioned a bunch of times. Like that's how we're introduced to it. And then long names is like the first time you see like they spoke their long name. That was like the first time I think I saw it in this reading, or in the book. And that like that in itself has a lot of power because I mean it's like it feels like it's it's kind of like you know that whole Feywild's Fey thing, if they know your name they have control, total power over you.
yeah.
I think it's similar to that, but
I was
I don't know.
joking about the scientific names earlier, but I think that's actually pretty close to how I picture what's going on there. Like a
Yeah.
combination between how when you speak Latin suddenly it has more power for some reason, but also like kind of reminds me of like kind of a unified theory sort of thing, like an alchemy. Like if you know its constituent parts, you can essentially create anything. So if you know a person's constituent parts, which is like whatever their long name is, so like I
Yeah.
don't know, if you know the person's like chemical makeup, you can fuck with it.
Yeah, which would tie in with the magic system anyway, because it seems to be based in that kind of alchemy or alchemical origin.
Maybe if you know a person's true name, that since that is themselves, it is the closest you can. It's the closest sympathetic link you can get.
That's true. And it's not necessarily even just like a person's long name, because the wind has a name. It's the name of the wind. You
Yeah.
call the name of the wind. You control the wind, or at least you try to.
And every time they use magic, they always whisper something under their breath, but he never says what it is. You ever notice
Do
that?
they? I don't know. I don't think I've noticed that. No.
Yeah, every time they whisper something.
Huh. I'll have to reread that. I'm sure they probably mention it in the Master Hem chapter.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because he spoke the binding, that sort of thing.
Oh, that's what you mean. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he's
That makes
never
sense.
actually explained what they're saying or where that's coming from.
Yeah.
Like, because he has this whole it's interesting because he has the whole concept of sympathy, and then he's explained it so well, and then he's like, okay, yeah, but then you have to bind them together. That's it. You're not gonna explain that. Tell us about it. It's like you've explained the concept behind it of how it all works, but you haven't actually explained how the hell you do it. Like,
I mean, I assume it was. I mean, it's verbal for sure.
what does the saying words? If the point is that things are like closely linked, what does saying a weird ass word have anything to do with that? Like, how does that help?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't.
Yeah, and he doesn't go into detail there. Yeah, and I don't know if he will, because I mean he's now gone into sympathy quite a bit, but I feel like if he was gonna focus on it, I feel like he would have mentioned it then, like when he was learning from Ben.
I guess. Well, maybe.
But
maybe we'll get into it more once we learn about naming.
Yeah, maybe
For Master Namor.
Because my understanding is that maybe it is naming, like maybe it's speaking the long name or something
of the binding.
Yeah, I guess of something. Yeah, of what you are. Well, because you're binding two things. So, do you speak both names? I don't know.
And obviously, there's a component of you have to believe that they're connected or something.
Yeah,
because they were all impressed that he could bind two things at once, which was because he could split his
perceive
mind
the two things at once. Yeah,
or something. I don't know how that helps, but like, what if you speak the random ass words, but you don't do the brain trick, then it doesn't work? Or
yeah, if you don't, well, I mean, that might be suggesting that if you're trying to cast some spell, if you're trying to bind two things, but you don't. But like you don't have faith in what you're doing, or you don't believe what's going to happen.
One, why would you suddenly believe that you couldn't do two?
Well, does it always come with two though? Like I thought it was just general. Like if you
that time he did two, and they were surprised. So if he could do one, then theoretically he could believe that he could do as many as he possibly could. Like I don't know.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it wasn't called like a lair or a lure or something like that. Like that belief. I think so. Anyway. Something like that.
No. Yes.
No? Yes?
Something like that.
I think something with an A.
What was the one that he called him that we weren't sure what it meant, and we now realize I think that it means like freshman.
Elir. Elir.
Is that it?
Yeah. Elir, yeah.
Which is Alar versus Ilar, the riding crop belief.
Alar, yeah.
Which I don't think he ever explained why they call it the riding crop belief.
I don't know. He said something about the donkey. No, the riding crop belief is on page 78. Oh, I will grab that. Thank you. Thank you, 4-1. 78. Oop, I just passed it. Here we go. Let's find it. He only called me a lair when he thought I was being especially willfully obstinate. Hello, the stick. Yes. Malicious glitter slapped. He slapped the side of the wagon with it, producing a sharp crack. One of Alpha's ears pivoted. Okay.
I also retrieved an olive because I saw it.
Okay. So, Corwin pinpointed where the donkeys are mentioned for that riding crop belief thing. So I was just reading it. So it's on page 78, where he says, good, he slapped the side of the wagon with it, producing a sharp crack. One of Alpha's ears, one of the donkeys, pivoted around at the noise, uncertain as to whether or not it was directed at her. That's the sort of belief I want. It's called a lar, riding crop belief. When I drop the stone, it will float away free as a bird.
That
Um,
doesn't seem explained to me.
he unhooked the slapstick used to goad Alpha when they were being lazy. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean the donkeys are mentioned, but
Is that the like? Is it the fact that the donkey didn't know whether it was getting whipped or not?
I think so. I think that's the
Because he kind
because he
of
because
really
he
didn't explain that very well. If we
yeah
weren't
because he.
incredibly intelligent, we probably wouldn't have figured that out.
But yeah, but I think that's what is the suggestion there. Um, hmm, fair enough. So on the discussion points, we've already talked about a couple, so I don't know if we need to go into all of them. But um, I had written down general discussion about the religious sects and how they are introduced, i.e., through story.
I prefer
Related, what is
secular
Scarpy?
sex.
I said it, and I was like, he's gonna make a joke. um,
I mean, it's in the name, secular. Come on,
secular.
sexular.
And then related, what is Scarpy's connection to Talon priests? I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about it because we were talking about like creation, the creation myths with Telu and the introduction of Aleph, and heresy. Uh, I don't know if I had anything else to add to that. I don't think so. Oh, and about the riding crop, it's because Kavoth is being cheeky when Abinthy asks if he believes in his parents, I guess. Maybe.
I don't remember.
That
I don't know.
was
I didn't.
2 weeks ago.
At the time, I remember him saying "riding crop belief." Pulls out a riding crop, moves on. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that?
Mm.
But I guess I kind of see it now.
Mm-hmm. We talked a bit about true name and long name and all that. We also talked about Haliax's origins and motivations and language and culture. We talked a little bit about that. That's the Sheldon people. Because I felt like in this...
Sheldon.
Sheldon. I felt like in this reading, this section of the book, there was more of a focus on different languages and cultures, and Kavoth learning, like he knew about them, but he learned about specific like traditions or like viewpoints more. And I thought that was an interesting thing because we really didn't get like any of that in the first reading or first session.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like even the Aturian Empire, like which ties into the Amur, and like because they were church knights for the Aturian Empire, I believe. But again, we don't know too much about them. We just know about like certain things. But anyway, but like going back to languages, like Kval talks a lot in this section about like the thickness of their accents.
But he doesn't actually explain the accents. He just says they had a thick one.
Yeah, yeah. Which I mean,
I do that too.
Paints.
I do that too. So
that's fair. I mean, and that's
I complained and then immediately realized that I was complaining about myself.
well, because I think it paints a picture for whoever's reading it. They're like, oh, how would I imagine this accent to be? Which isn't a bad thing in my opinion, but
I
yeah.
The most I'll do is I'll say like they elongate their vowels or something like that. Like just a hint.
Yeah, he doesn't really specify the accent, just as thick, which I was like, okay. And then there's other interesting pieces too with like cultural traditions that Rothfuss talks about, where like when Derek's talking to Kavoth, he talks about how he was like has the husband, Rowant, I think his name is, has Rowant ever given you money, or has it always been Rita? And Kost's like, oh yeah, no, I guess Rita usually does, because he was like, well, in Childish, they they see the women more as like managing the money or giving money away or like, all that. And I was like, oh, that's an
Yeah, the
interesting
men don't want to appear
thing.
womanly, so that
Yeah.
they don't have to touch
So they don't
money.
give money.
Only women touch money.
It was just interesting. I was like, okay. um yeah, but just like and it's something that Kavath that was new to Kavath. Like he knew about the
Specifically,
Keldish,
it
but
was the men won't give money in any
give
regard,
money.
but they'll accept it
Yeah.
just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. But the women can do it. But like she was always the one who was, I mean, yeah, like buying things or, but and in that way, like, it's saying like, oh, well, it's a womanly thing to do, but also if she's the only one doing it, she's keeping the caravan fucking alive. Like, she's doing all that shit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah.
She's doing the bit at the beginning of Oregon Trail when you buy things.
A Turian trail. And then I think those were the main kind of points I talked about. But you had some points. Creation myth and all that.
Creation myths. I just kind of wanted to discuss them and how boring the first one was. I found the Telu stuff pretty uninspiring. I found the other stuff pretty interesting though.
Yeah, I agree. Lanre's story was great. I thought that was really interesting, and not only because it relates to Haliax, but
I don't know if I mentioned this about the Lanre story before, but I was kind of annoyed that there's this whole big thing about Lanre dying, and then like Lyra dies immediately after, and everyone's like, I guess she died. It's like they make a huge deal about him dying, and then it's like, oh yeah, she died off screen. What?
Well, yeah, because the whole thing that they had with her is that they don't know what happened to her. She and Lanre disappeared for years. They don't know what happened.
It just felt like he died.
Yeah,
and then she died.
What? Yeah. It was a big thing, and then a short thing. Yeah,
it was weird.
That was interesting. The contrast between those two stories is interesting. Yeah.
Well, one of them I think is meant to take place long after the first one, or maybe I clocked that wrong. Like the first one feels like a really long time ago, whereas the other one feels like a few thousand years ago.
Yeah, because it's talking about the
one of them feels Old Testament, the other one feels New Testament, basically.
Yeah, well, they kind of date it when, I mean, because the second story, the continuation of that story is Celitos setting up the Amur, and the Amur, like, Kavoth says that they haven't been seen for 300 years.
300
specifically.
Years, yeah.
Yeah, so that's around the time.
Well, they may have been
are both true? Are either true?
Longer than that, but
yeah, and I wanted to talk about this too. What you're saying, Corwin. So, when we were talking a bit about why Scarpy was grabbed for and accused of heresy, and the reasons for that, we were like, oh, maybe because like they're not portraying Telu in an all benevolent light who's super powerful and all that, because he's bowing to Aleph. So I want to say, I've talked about this with Ares too, like there are pieces of these stories that probably are correct, but they're not, I don't know if either of them are necessarily true. And that kind of lends to what Scarpy was saying of like, I know one story, but there's other pieces that are part of the story that I could tell you about.
Yeah, like any creation myth, parts of it are going to be based in reality. Parts of it are very much not.
And that is yeah.
The interesting thing is, I think we have a god who was around during that time.
Yeah.
We're probably going to meet at some point. and it's probably going to give us some level of the true story, some degree of true story. I'm gonna say that I think that'll happen.
And I think that idea, that question of is this true? Are they both true? I feel like that might come up at maybe later on at some point, because I mean, the whole thing is a story on Kavoth's part. And he also says, like, best stories people tell about me are like my own lies or something, or lies of others. So it can create a larger discussion of, like, is Kavoth telling the truth? I mean, why wouldn't he? But yeah.
Why
I
would
don't
he?
know. It's interesting. Yeah. True. Because it's the best story if he's lying. Yeah.
He's got to be embellishing, right? There's no way he's telling it perfectly. Well, no, he has like hyper memory,
No.
doesn't he?
Can Kavoth tell the truth? He only has his own perspective. Yeah. And I mean, like, that's for all these stories. I feel like Aries was asking me the same questions when I was reading. He was like, is this true? Is that true? This seems a little different than that story. And it's because it's all told from these different perspectives. Like you were saying, Corwin, like, Scarpy is kind of claiming it as history when you can't really necessarily do that. But then both are told in different ways too. Like both myths. I was gonna say creation myths, but they're not both creation myths. Because, like, there's the Telian, like, story of, like, how Taylor came to be and his reincarnation, and that's very, like, you know, it's biblical, and it's chronicled, and, you know, all that stuff.
Bibble.
Bibble. And then there's the story of Lanre, which is more of, like, a legend, what I would equate to, like, a legendary saga in Icelandic myth, where they're talking about a great hero doing all this stuff. And those are oral stories. I mean, they're like, heh.
Well, the other thing I wanted to say was that was a hell of a dark story to tell to fucking children.
Yes. Yes, it was.
What the hell, dude? I mean, like, water it down a little. And then he stabbed his own eyes out with a piece of glass.
Oh my god, right! I forgot about that.
What the hell?
I was like, oh, and then it became the was it, oh god, Celitos the one-eyed, or Celitos the true eye, or something like that. I was like, god damn,
I don't know.
He's blind.
Glass eye. They call me Glass Eye.
Call me Glass Eye.
On account of the glass eye.
My glass eye. I was gonna say that. But yeah, I I thoroughly enjoyed the Lanre story, and I thought the tale of the story was okay, if a bit long.
It just did not capture me.
That's fair.
Yeah. So human goodness, we kind of talked about already a little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. Bought water. Yeah, I don't have too much more to say on that. It's just like, it seems like everybody's kind of chill.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, there's a few assholes, but for the most part, everybody's genuinely willing to help.
Yeah.
I said, where did my interludes go? We talked about that. We talked about Kavoth being perfect. Did we talk about Kavoth being perfect? Maybe we didn't.
No, we did. You were like, is he a Mary Sue?
I mean, did we have a discussion about it though? I mentioned it.
We could talk about it more. We didn't go into it very much.
We don't have to. It just struck me that it's like at every turn he just lucks into goodness. Or does something extraordinary. Like, he either does something extraordinary or has crazy good luck.
Yeah.
The only true terrible thing that's happened to him so far is his parents died. Every other bad thing that's come off the back of that is like normal bad stuff that happens when you are either his fault or normal bad things that happen off the back of
Mm-hmm.
just the fact that you are an orphan in a large city at a time period where nobody gives a shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just I, I, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, so. Oh, hi, sir. Um, we establish early that he's very like he catches on to things really quickly for his age. Faster than like Ben is noting this. Faster than other kids would. Um, and he's multi-talented,
Mm-hmm.
mostly from his exposure to a lot of different kinds of like performing arts and things with traveling with the troupe. He is able to survive, although he gets the shit kicked out of him a bunch of times in Tarbayan. Um, but it's not like it's specific to him. It's like any kid who would go to Hillside, that would have happened to them.
Right.
Um, so I mean, there's other characters who that I've read or watched or something where they seem perfect at everything, and I don't get that feeling from him necessarily.
Really.
Um,
I
yeah.
I find it a little bit like, okay, he did that again.
Mm.
Like, uh oh, he he's the one person who this happened to, and wow, nobody's ever done that before, and just at every single turn he's like the best at something.
I think he kind of outwits or like kind of not cheat. Well, yeah, no, he kind of cheats his way through some things. Like I mean, with the university, like that was not fully all of his knowledge.
Yeah, but like,
He's smart about certain things. He's still lucky. He's like that. All that happened. Like he's
yeah,
still, got asked to like got summoned by the masters and the chancellors and came out with just a lashing, as opposed to expulsion. Um, Related to Is He Perfect? I want to know what your thoughts are on young Caval's character slash personality now that we know him a little bit better.
young being like our
Like Troop,
entire time of having or of knowing him, or just like before he got to
Tarban,
Tarban.
Tarbine.
Tarbine.
Mm. Yeah, no, I get the feeling like he is extremely talented at a lot of stuff and he can adapt very quickly. But there's other characters who I've been like, oh, this jerk. Hi, sorry, the cat.
Black screen.
Um, like, oh, this is happening again with other characters where I don't really care about them as a result. But because he's learning, I think that's the biggest thing for me. That he's actually like he does make mistakes, he learns from them, he gets a little witty and shows compassion and
Mm-hmm.
seems more human in that sense.
So non-innkeeper Kvoth.
So what we've read then so far.
What are our thoughts on his personality?
He's a little shit. He's a
Yeah,
bit of a shit, but
bit.
but in an endearing way because I actually do like him as a character.
He's he doesn't seem to have any character flaws.
I would argue that because
The, the
he
only
gets like
character flaw he has that I can possibly point to
Mhm.
is a bit of naivety that is almost exclusively related to his his being stuck in the city and having to adapt to that.
Yeah.
And
See,
obviously when he was a young kid, like there are things he didn't know, but like
yeah. For me, I think one of his big weaknesses is, and I don't really know how else to say this, but he gets too big for his britches a lot, and then it comes to bite him in the ass a few times, and he's like, "Oh shit, I shouldn't have done that." Okay. Um,
I guess like when he tries to attach his lungs to the air.
yeah, I can name the wind. Never mind. Um, and, like, he, Yeah, I think he makes mistakes and he learns from them. And this doesn't happen rarely, in my opinion. Like it happens like he's still talented and he's still like, oh yeah, I'm talented, I'm lucky, I'm gonna get through all this stuff. But I just wouldn't see that. I can't. I wouldn't say that he has no flaws because I don't see him as perfect. I see him as learning a lot, and I see him as someone with a lot of promise and like what's the word? I don't know, but a lot of talent and promise, and he's learning about a lot of
I know.
stuff.
He has chutzpah.
Chutzpah, that's a good one. He gives me the no one wanted me around, nice binder goob, hey goob wanna hang out, they all hate. Oh, from Meet the Robinsons. Have you seen that movie?
No, but
Uh
I get it.
yeah. They all hated me. A little. Cuz he
Yeah,
gets like so obsessed with something. Yeah.
yeah. His what he describes as actually happening is often at odds with how he reacts to it and how he then kind of summarizes it, if that makes sense. So like kind of like what you said, like he'll show someone being good and then say like I never had any opportunities to like
Yeah.
nobody ever helped me. Here's all these examples of people helping me.
Yeah. Which is a very like childish thing to do to say, and then as he's growing up, he's getting a little better about it.
But then he plays his lute and so well that it makes everybody get a tear in their eye.
See, I really like that chapter because that
I
was
like that
him just
chapter too. It was
reconnecting.
great, but like it's just yet another thing where he's perfect at it, or like the
I
best
mean,
ever at it, or whatever.
okay, fair, but like he also would have had a lot of practice from playing the lute for like years until his fingers bled and being in a troupe.
And then he hadn't played it for 4 years, and it took him no time at all to suddenly be the best again.
And I kind of like that, but that's just me because I also like how Rothfuss described it
I liked it
because he
too,
went
but it
like
was unrealistic.
fair.
I
I
mean,
guess in my opinion, that doesn't trump it for me because
it's
I'm like,
fiction, but
yeah, I like that idea of it being like a magical sudden thing because the way he describes it was that he had this shell and it cracked,
yeah.
and he was like,
If
I remember everything. It's like riding a
if it
bike.
was just that on its own, I'd be fine. But it's just after constantly that, it just
Oh,
feels like,
fair.
yep, there's another. Oh, yep,
Mm.
there's another. Oh, they're gonna whip him. Oh, yep. Now he's just gonna know some knowledge that nobody else apparently knows about this random weed in order to make it so that he doesn't feel it.
Mm.
Okay, okay, Kavath.
Interesting. I wonder if like that's why I really like having this discussion too because like it's clearly we like I fully understand also where you're coming from, but it's just a different viewpoint as I'm reading for me.
I think you'll
It's
find
interesting.
that nobody else is allowed to have any viewpoints that are different from my own.
I am the true answer to everything.
I am the Kavath of opinions.
Mm.
All right, thanks for watching our second reading of book club. Hope there's many more. And what were we reading? We were reading chapters 21 through 41. And likewise, we are going to be reading chapters 42 through 61.
Mm-hmm.
This in the next reading. We will be streaming this on Twitch on Wednesday, on every other Wednesday, and we will then upload to YouTube soon after. Yeah, we'll see you guys in the next reading.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.